And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
And welcome to the University of Logic, better known as Cristiano's Conservatory, correcting convoluted conversations. Good evening, folks. This evening we have a special program. We're actually going to be going through to 9 o'clock. They normally end at 8, but we got sideswiped by the OSU game, and so they gave us an extra hour. So it's almost 7:30 now, and we'll go on. And please stay with us. But most importantly, we have 3 guests tonight. So tell all your friends, get them on the phone, app them, do whatever you have to do, but get your friends and get everybody to listen to this program. We're going to be talking about a host of subjects of interest and critical to you. And don't be afraid. In fact, I'll give you a second yet. Give them a call right now. I'll wait for you. I'm only kidding. You know that. But do that, you know. Give them a call. Make sure they know. During our break, make sure that you give them a call. I want to remind everybody, or I shouldn't remind, I never mentioned this. You know, I have an internet program as well as the program here on 1170 KFAQ. It's on Thursday morning. Typically it's 6:30 because I'm a morning person. That's why I do it at that time. And I cover a variety of subjects every Thursday morning, except for the third Wednesday of every month. Wednesday evening, I broadcast because I have Andy Sutton, who will be here later on this evening. He's the economist and chief investment strategist for Sutton & Associates, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The guy's brilliant, and he's a phenomenal writer. I just love him. Now, one thing that I get reminded of all the time, and I always forget, is that we have an app. And it's a Liberty Talk Radio app. If you want to listen to any of our programs, whether it be the internet program or that's why it's important to the broadcast audience. All right,
yeah, of course.
I'm sorry, I don't even know what I'm doing. You know, go to download the app, have it, and you can listen to me 24 hours a day. You lucky people, you know, and please, and let us hear from you, you know. And tonight, we'd like to hear from you. Our toll-free number is 855-866-1170. And before I introduce the guest, I want to make a point about a movie, 1999, and it was called The Matrix. I'll bet everyone remembers that movie. And admittedly, I had to watch that movie 3 times until I understood it. Everyone understood it. I'm just thick or something. I mean, I really wanted to understand the true concept. The first time I watched it, I was gobbledygook. I really didn't stand it. I just thought it was a wacky science fiction movie. The second time, I got some of it. The third time, I thought I have it. And then it eventually clicked, and I understood it. And, folks, I'm going to tell you what I finally understand about The Matrix. And that is, it is not a science fiction movie. See, I took it as a science fiction movie. That's how my mentality went in when I was viewing it. You see, The Matrix, folks, was a documentary. Yeah, that's right, a documentary. Because today, folks, we live in illusions. Watching television will tell you that. There is proof positive we are living in an illusion. You'll see an ad for, excuse me?
You took the red pill, you're saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everyone seems to have taken the red pill. Now, the red pill means that you give yourself up for the illusion of living a long and happy life. Am I correct?
No, it's the other way.
It's the blue pill.
Yeah, the blue pill is...
No, the blue pill. That's right, the blue pill. Why did you... I knew that. Why did you screw me up?
I'm saying you took the red pill because you're going...
Oh, I'm taking the red pill.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm sorry.
You hang around with clowns. Guess what you get?
Get clowns.
You know, it's clown circus over here, you know. But no, you're right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. But, and everything... You take... In the Matrix, people took the blue pill. And when you take the blue pill, life is great. Everything is fine. It's like television. You ever notice they have ads of nursing homes, for example, and it's always an elderly lady and man, and they're sitting on a rocking, in a rocking type chair, and they're both smiling and laughing. Folks, have you ever been to a nursing home? I used to sing barbershop quartet, and we used to be invited to nursing homes. I refused to go after a while. It's the saddest place in the world. I have never seen anyone smile. Even when we sang and they enjoyed it, they didn't smile. Every single advertisement, everyone is so happy. I saw an ad once, and I kid you not, it was for a napkin, a regular table napkin. I think variety table napkins or something like that. And there was a little kid. He could have been more than 5 years old or something. And he was ecstatic that his mom bought this type of table napkin. And we watch this stuff. Just today, I was listening to the radio, and they were talking about a game, fantasy football. You see, everything is a fantasy. Everything is an illusion. And I'm going to talk more about and give you specifics on some of the things that are going on, the events that are going on, that simply are illusions. Can you imagine fantasy football? Now, I never played football professionally and know that semi-professionally, but I did play. And when my friends and I played, we played a regular football game with a regular football with no equipment, no helmets, no nothing.
Probably
Did it hurt? It hurt. Yeah.
In the middle of the street.
Yeah. When I went to college, I kid you not, when I went to college, all right, the fraternities would play one another, and we would play on a Sunday, and no equipment. And that was insane.
Tackle.
Tackle football.
Yeah, that's rugby.
No, it was worse than rugby.
Australian real football.
Yeah. And I remember one time we had a big game with a rival fraternity. It was a bloody game. And I went to Pace University, Pace College at the time. And we had a building which is called the Annex, where they had some of the other courses going on. They were expanding. And never forget, I walked in, that was a Monday morning, I walked into one of the classes, and it just happened in that class, there were around 5 or 6 or 7 fraternity members that were played in that football game. One had a broken arm. I mean, one had crutches. One guy, his face was all black and I never forget. And I believe me, hobbled in. I mean, I could hardly walk. And I said to myself, my God, we have to be out of our minds. My point is, folks, that was not a fantasy. That hurt. Was it stupid? You bet it was stupid. But it wasn't a fantasy. Today we play fantasy football. And well, guess what? We play the part of the quarterback. And we make the big play at the end of the game. We feel good about ourselves, and then we leave. And we live in this fantasy because we've all taken the blue pill. All of us. We believe what we hear on television. You know, not only that, but let me go further. We actually believe what we're taught in school.
I never did.
I've ranted about this 1,000 times. 1,000 times. I've ranted once. You know, we teach comic book history. We believe it. You know, and I've gone through this. I'm not going to go through it again because it's an hour-long program in itself. But yet we believe it. We graduate school, right? And so we're living this total illusion about America and who we are and what happened around the world. You know, I wonder in the 1930s, during the Depression, or even before that, didn't have to be during the Depression, but especially during the Depression, when a farmer got up in the morning and in the middle of the Dust Bowl and had to eke out a living, whether or not he was living a fantasy, he had to get up and find a way to make literally a few cents to feed his family for that day. That was not a fantasy. That was reality. That's life, and it's tough. Life is very difficult, and today we all have it easy. And what really grabbed me just 3 or 4 days ago, I was at the coffee shop. A car pulls up real close to the window where I was at. A gal gets out of a car. She must have, a small gal, a woman, she must have weighed maybe about 130 pounds. She was in a Lexus SUV, must have weighed 5,000 pounds. And she was wearing jeans that were ripped to shreds. Do you know, during the Depression, the farmer I was just talking about, if their jeans were that way, they would have sold the damn things. they would have had enough respect for themselves to sew them.
That's right.
And the reason why they couldn't buy a new pair of jeans is because they couldn't afford them. And that was the reality. And she is living in this illusion of being poor when she is riding around in a $58,000, $5,000 Now, you can ask, I have to ask you a question. What the heck? Why the heck do we need 5,000 pounds of machinery to transport a 130-pound woman? No, I'm going off. I know I'm going off the tangent. I know that. I'm way off. But my point is that everything is an illusion. We have this illusion that the government is there to protect us. The government's there to exploit us. Let me give you an example. There's a book called Wheat Belly out. Wheat Belly.
You can talk about that.
Wheat Belly. And we have a doctor here. He's going to talk all about it, right? He'll tell us about it. Wheat Belly. Well, we don't sell wheat today. We don't grow wheat today. We grow this concoction of a wheat, right, that's drug resistant and weather resistant, everything resistant, plastic resistant, everything resistant, right? And we grow tons of it because it's cheap, right? And it grows in about any type of soil. We can export it and we make lots of money. And you say, well, Joe, how could that be? Well, that's because we have a government that's protecting us, right? No, of course not. Because we have a government where Big Agra is paying off or giving big contributions to the people in Congress, the senators, right? And saying, hey, why don't you pass this bill? We can modify the wheat so we don't have to do all this other stuff. And bingo, right? Then they have this wheat, right? And then they tell us to eat well. And if you read this book, it tells you that it is non-nutritious, harmful to the body, and all it does is create body fat. You see, we are living in this illusion, and we're running out of time. I didn't mean to take up this much time. Folks, I wanted to talk so much. How about next week?
You have a call. Someone wants to talk to you.
Oh, they do?
We got a caller?
Yeah, Anonymous Joe.
How dare they?
Yeah, I wanted to concur with you that about the illusion. And the American economy is an absolute illusion.
Oh.
Okay.
In what world economy now?
In what respect, Joe?
Well, actually, money does not. The money that we produce and we put value on is all a construct of everybody's mind. There is no true value in the paper. There is no true value in ink that's on the paper, and there's no reserves to back it up.
You're absolutely correct. But the average American, when I go to a bank that I haven't been to before, I always ask by the way, how much silver in these coins? Every single time. Every time they go, I don't know. Wait a minute. Let me go ask.
Oh my God.
No, that's the good part. The bad part is they go ask the manager, and they come back and they say, we're not sure. That's the scary part. They don't even, the manager doesn't even know.
Yes,
it is incredible.
The prestige in a magician's trick, the final reveal is called the prestige. I have a perfect prestige. If everybody would go to the bank and withdraw all their coin and paper, there's only 3% that exists in coin and paper. There'll be nothing left. Everything else is just a pencil mark on a ledger.
That reminds me.
You know what? But Joe, wouldn't it be interesting if everyone knew that? The panic that would result from that?
Well, Joe, remember that friend you said that the older guy that went to the banking was going to get $10,000 or $20,000 cash out or something?
Oh, yeah, a friend of mine. He wanted to buy some precious metals, He only went with $5,000. He went to the bank for $5,000. They said, come back. It was Friday. He says, come back Wednesday. He went crazy. He went nuts. He called me. He was cursing me out. Now, what are you cursing me out? I'm not a banker, Hey, Joe, let me do me a favor. Send me an email to comments@libertytalkradio.com with a mailing address and a T-shirt size. I would love to send you a Liberty Talk Radio T-shirt so you can be one of my walking billboards.
Are you going to put a target on me? Tell me, is it hunting season?
Well, I'm sorry, but that's the way it works, Joe.
Well,
okay?
Wear it inside out. It'll keep you cool.
That's right. Okay? Thanks a lot for calling.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Yeah. We're running out of time, folks, and I'm chewing up too much time. Our first guest this evening is Dr. Jim Meehan. And Jim is a very accomplished person. In fact, I was mentioning to him, I said, your introduction would be so much better if it was like mine. I was a juvenile delinquent and a jerk, and then they'd just give me my name, But he received a congressional appointment to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. Unfortunately, he had to leave because of a family emergency. Had to drop out, actually. Just eventually got a job, just like a regular, entry-level job. But actually impressed so many people, worked hard, and he eventually worked himself up to the U.S. Director of Business Development for a local company's international parent company. Inspired by this exposure to health and care, Jim committed himself to completing his college education and pursuing a career in medicine. He has a degree in biology. He went to medical school at OSU.
OU.
OU.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, you made the Cardinal
no,
right there.
I get a free pass because the OSU game was as after.
That's right.
Okay, I get a free pass on that. All right. And he is an ophthalmologist, and he's in private practice right now. But you know what? Jim is interested in what is going on, not only in medicine, but outside medicine. Very unusual for a doctor, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Jim Meehan. Jim, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Well, Jim, tell me, how much do you like Obamacare and what's it going to do to us?
Well, I detest it. It's a real mistake for our country. Listen, I took the red pill, and I emerged from a healthcare system and realized that, I got paid a lot of money to use a laser to treat a diabetic retina. I mean, $3,000 or $4,000 to treat a damaged, diseased retina, but I'd get paid nothing to prevent that disease. There's a real disconnection in this broken healthcare system. There's a lot of disincentives, and it all is it's that illusion construct that you kind of alluded to earlier. There's too many disincentives built into the system, and all that Obamacare really did was repaper that, rebrand it, and entrench some of the worst parts of healthcare. Some of those worst parts are the third-party payer system that really, it's unfortunate that doctors allowed and patients and the system in general allowed a third-party payer system to intrude upon the doctor-patient relationship so many years ago. It really has created, does it make sense to create layers and layers of bureaucracy that add really no value to the healthcare delivery system, except to shuttle money around? Talk about ledger sheets and the problems that the caller, alluded to as well. It added no value, and it's become a leviathan that is sucking away a lot of resources from medicine. So that's, when Obamacare was being discussed, and of course we didn't know what the legislature didn't know what they were voting on. It was a Frankenstein monster of different ideas from, every place from the Heritage Foundation to, communist Russia. But it became this unwieldy system that at its core entrenched the third-party payer system. So you can't fix something when you're making the worst part of it, more ingrained. Right. And that's what we're seeing right now is this. So we said we're going to insure everybody. Everybody gets insured. All the pre-existing conditions. Everybody in the country's got to buy health insurance, and it's going to cost less. How in the world is that going to happen? We're going to add 16,000 IRS agents to enforce it. We're going to take some really expensive conditions that previously had been pre-excluded or had, to be insured, had to pay a pretty high, hefty amount. We're going to bring that cost down. And to do that, we've got to bring in 40 million uninsured. We got 12.5 million young people that weren't paying for health insurance previously. And we've got to bring all this money into the system to make it work. And it's, what better evidence do we have that it's designed to fail than
that's what I said.
So the rollout on Tuesday was a joke. You can't get onto the healthcare exchanges. The few people that can are finding that it's far more expensive than they were ever told it would be. But let me go back to that designed to fail, Because I really think
there
that
you go.
the fact of the matter is that this system, and Democratic lawmakers have even said this, alluded to this in MSNBC interviews. Howard Dean was one of them, as a matter of fact.
That's surprising.
Six to 8 months ago. But this system is really designed to fail. They rebranded it, made it really complex, but ultimately I think there are people that knew that it was going to be too expensive, so unwieldy, and ultimately that the government was going to have to step in, take it all over, and socialize medicine. And I don't say that, I'm not trying to be an alarmist here, a conspiracy theorist or otherwise. I think the reality is that there have got to be people that knew that this was just the same old song and dance that we did in the 1980s and the 1990s. Accountable care organizations are simply a new name for managed care, capitated health insurance systems from the 80s and 90s. And they didn't work then. They're not going to work now. But we're spending a tremendous amount of money trying to implement what we know is simply not going to work.
What I find interesting is that, I don't like to travel. I'll be honest with you. I'm very busy. I enjoy what I'm doing. I have a couple of businesses, and travel to me is very, very disruptive. I'm traveling this week. I'm going to California, and I had to pack. I always tell my wife, I said, this is not traveling. This is temporarily moving, and of course she slaps me around. But we went about 9 years ago, I believe it was, to Montreal. And when we got there, we stayed at one of their classic hotels. It was an older hotel, but it really wasn't refurbished yet, but it was a classic hotel. We decided to stay there. And it had an old-fashioned TV set. I mean, a really old-fashioned TV set. It was 6 o'clock, and I ran into the room. I wanted to turn on to see what they talked about on the 6 o'clock news. First thing I did, I walked in, just dropped everything, pulled the little button out, the old TV, you pull the button out, stood there, and this is the God's honest truth. I couldn't make this thing up because, truth is better than fantasy. And the first order of business, the highlight subject was, how does Canada convert their government-paid healthcare system into a privatized system? How do we convert back into how do we get the private sector back in, because the burden is too high for Canada? And I stood there and I flipped. And at the same time, what I'm hearing in the States is that, look at Canada, they have a perfect system, and they're opting out of it.
Right.
Now, did I hear wrong or something, or what?
No, that is constantly, various socialized medicine countries are pointed to, always, used to as examples of how this works, and how it could be beneficial to the United States. But when you examine those systems, what you find is the only way that they save money is rationing healthcare. And the lines are there, and the pre-existing conditions are still excluded, or you have excessive weights, or if you're over a certain age, you don't get a hip replacement. That's what's going to happen with any socialized medicine program. You're going to have lines. You're going to have rationing. You're going to have people that simply can't get the surgery that they otherwise would have been able to obtain.
So it's a bait and switch. They say,
absolutely,
pre-existing conditions we're going to cover now, but it'll take a little while.
Yeah, but
and you'll die before you ever get the operation.
You have to understand, they call it Obamacare. Obama doesn't care. Understand? Everything's an illusion. Obama doesn't care. It's the unaffordable Care Act. We all know that. I had a knee replacement on March 11th, and good doctor. Everything went smooth as silk, perfectly successful. Knee feels brand new, but both of them gone, because I used to run long distance. I raced a lot. I was 9 triathlons. I abused myself to hell, right? And one day when I went, my knees were bothering me. They took x-rays. They said, "Morona me." They said, you have no cartilage. You have bone on bone. How do you walk? I said, it doesn't bother me. They were surprised that I was able to walk without, taking a lot of medication or anti-inflammatory. I said, no, I take nothing. Well, eventually my left knee got to a point where it was buckling on me, so I had that replaced. 2 months of it, really. After a while, I said, I can't take the pain anymore. I was taking hydrocodone and stuff like that. I hated it. Got me sick. I lost about 10 pounds just because I couldn't eat. I said, I never want to go through this again. Well, I knew that my right knee had to get fixed. And guess what? November 25th, I'm getting a new right knee, partially, but primarily because I know if I don't get it November 25th, I ain't gonna get it. And believe me, I am not looking forward to this at all.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of concern among physicians and even hospitals as to what really is going to happen. There's still so many unknowns. But I can tell you that when I was involved in a project to build a state-of-the-art eye center in Dodge City, Kansas, and when President Obama was reelected, that hospital went on immediate downsizing. They started decreasing work hours of the nursing staff, laying off nursing staff, and they actually canceled that project and actually terminated an orthopedic surgeon that had started there very recently because they realized that, one of the things that Obama did and what Obamacare does is they steal 26% of Medicare reimbursements to physicians and hospitals to pay for the additional cost of Obamacare. So that's like getting a 25, a quarter of the income that is typically being paid through Medicare will be reduced to hospitals and physicians. And listen, I don't like to talk about problems without talking about a little bit of solutions, but the only solution for healthcare is to empower consumers to take control of their health and wellness. We have to re-empower health savings accounts. We need free market reforms. We need transparency in healthcare. This third-party payer system has created a complete disconnection between what is the price of your knee replacement. If you called, and you didn't mention in my credits, but I'm a martial artist, and
that's right, yeah.
World Jiu-Jitsu champion and third-degree Taekwondo, but I recently had a knee surgery of my own, and when I went and asked, I said, what's it going to cost me? And I'm a doctor. So I said, what's it going to cost me? What's this MRI going to cost me? They couldn't tell me what the cost is. They had to, we'll get back with you. And it took a couple of days to get anything. And then they would say, hey, listen, it's approximation, Dr. Meehan. And that's the reality of, you should have it should be a menu item. It's a price. Right. What does it cost? So there are real solutions, and they don't have anything to do with entrenching third-party payers, increasing the size of government and healthcare. Prevention needs to be the focus, but we don't need a government bureaucracy delivering that.
I agree.
Well, when I had right before my knee, months before my knee replacement, they give you those injections that's sort of, it's a lubricant, basically, Right. And I asked the doctor, I said, let me ask you, the stuff that you're putting in my knee, is that expensive stuff? He says, you want to know something? It costs about $35. He says, in my opinion, about $35. I said, well, how much is the shot? He says, $1,000.
Right.
He says, I bill $1,000. I said, $1,000, and I yelled it out. And I can't say, I said a word that I wasn't supposed to say out loud, real loud, and the whole clinic stopped, by the way, stopped and looked. Now,
wait, we're running out of time, but.
Yeah, I know. But let me make one thing. I said $1,000. He says, no, not really, per knee. I went nuts.
But your doctor never gets that. You may bill that much, but he'll probably get 42.
Right.
Yeah.
No, honestly.
Because who gets this money, doctor? Right. I mean, if they're knocking a haircut of 25% off of what they would get before.
It's a negotiated price. So the book price is not what really gets reimbursed. So a lot of smoke and mirrors in the pricing system.
It's non-reality. It's not a reality.
Yeah. Well, can doctors opt to be out of the system, open their own clinic, cash only?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's happening in droves. Okay. It's one of the major growth areas of medicine right now.
Okay, so we can, in fact, have a free market medical system right alongside.
It's growing. And as a matter of fact, I'm the chief medical informatics officer for a consumer-focused business startup based at Harvard Medical School called Prevently.com. We are creating those low-cost, high-yield systems that will help patients take control of their health and wellness.
Wow.
Well, that's going to be interesting. But
That's talking about solutions instead of just the problem.
Right.
And I would assume they're going to be much less, much cheaper.
Much less. I mean, there's going to be, a strong free component of it. It's just like people want to know, what do I do to get healthier, to reduce the inflammation of my body,
Right.
to improve my nutrition, to detoxify my body from all these chemicals that are a major cause of disease and chronic disease.
You're taking responsibility. That's what it's really all
Absolutely.
about. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you're right. Once you get a third party, and it's no longer the two-party system where they sit down and go. Well, I remember my cousin was a doctor when I was a little kid. We used to call him Dr. Pete, and people would go to him and they say, "Doc, a lot of poor people. They don't worry about it, And I remember if you went to the doctor for a checkup, and he said, "Yeah, it looks good. Take care," and that was it. I mean, they didn't even charge us. Sometimes if they did, it was a couple of dollars.
I had a group insurance.
Now they fill out all the forms. The guy looked at my thumb. It's okay. It takes him 2 minutes, goes out there, and you find out it's $187.50. That's happened to me one time.
Well,
I went crazy.
Like even insurance. I had a large deductible insurance, and I went to the doctor. I had to get something taken off my back, and it was going to cost I think it was going to cost $500, after the anesthesia and all the whole deal. But I told the girls, I said, now listen, I got an $8,000 deductible here. I said, I'm paying all this out of my own pocket. Kind of be easy on me. And they said, oh, you're paying cash? I got like a 40% discount for paying cash.
Always ask. If you have one of those high deductible plans, ask what the cash price is, and you'll find that it's a fraction of what that book price is that's really created and artificial by the health insurance system.
Yeah, we only have about 30 seconds before we go on a break, but
yes, sir.
What do you think is going to happen? What's your prediction?
I think it's absolutely going to collapse. I think the prices are going to be very high in the exchanges. Obama's going to say, look what these bad guys did. We're going to have to come in and fix it, save it, and then that will begin the fall to socialized medicine.
But we can do our own thing, right? We can pay
a friend of mine who's a
you'll pay a fine.
A surgeon.
Oh, have to still pay the fine. You figure that.
Guys, we have to stop for a break. Doc, don't go away. You'll stay with us next hour.
Yeah,
okay.
have fun.
All right.
Got
Stay with us, guys.
and
get your friends. Get your friends on the phone.
coming up.
Yep. All right. Let's go for break. Kathy, fine. We had a little glitch. Thank you for calling Liberty Talk Radio on 1170 KFAQ. What's on your mind?
Well, y'all are on the subject of knee surgeries, and I'm due to have a kneecap replacement in February of next year. And how's this going to affect my Medicare and my supplemental? Is it going to affect it at all?
Well, Kathy, this is Dr. Meehan. I really, to be honest with you, I don't think you're going to see any major effect in February of next year. Get it as soon as you can, but you got to consider that the net result of reducing the reimbursements for Medicare procedures by 26% is going to be a limitation. Some clinics simply aren't going to be able to add more patients, and some doctors may stop taking Medicaid patients. There's already a reduction in that. Medicare is kind of the lowest paying amount for most reimbursements, and it continues to go down and be cut. The most commonly performed surgeries continue to be decreased in their reimbursement levels year after year. As an eye surgeon, I really basically had to stop doing cataract surgery because it continually was being cut. It got to the point where it just really didn't reimburse for the time and the 90 days of care that I had to provide. So I wouldn't anticipate any major changes, but we really just don't know what to expect. The law of unintended consequences is going to run rampant in the next several months.
It's a little scary, I tell you.
Are you scheduled? Are you scheduled with your doctor?
Yes, I'm already scheduled.
Well, that might help you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Kathy, and good luck to you. Appreciate it. Okay. Also, now we have on the line one of our other guests for the second hour, Andy Sutton. He's an economist and chief investment strategist with Sutton Associates in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Let's get Andy on the line. Andy, are you there?
Hey, Joe. How are you tonight?
Fine, Andy. Andy, I want you to know that Dr. Jim Meehan is still on the line. He's going to join us in this three-way or four-way conversation as soon as Linda Woods calls in.
How you doing, Doctor?
Very good, Andy. Great to be on with you.
Excellent. Same here.
All right, now, Andy, you say everything is fine. Prove it to me.
I never said that. That was other people.
Tell us, what should we be worried about right now?
Well, you guys are talking the last hour about this healthcare thing. The word or the term train wreck comes to mind when I look at this, and I'm not just looking at it from a medical perspective. I'm looking at it, from an economic perspective as well. We couldn't afford what we had for various reasons, which we've all been over, several dozen times. They've just taken all that and made it worse. So, they're basically guaranteed. This is guaranteed to fail, in my opinion, economically. And I think that was pointed out by one of your guests at the end of the last hour. It's destined to fail, and then that'll be kind of the Hegelian dialect, if you will, for bringing in what they really want, which is total government control of the healthcare system, and that seems where we're headed. I don't think what's going on here is even total control. I think that's the ultimate goal, and this is just one of the steps.
Exactly. That I see it the same way, Andy. From the inside of medicine, that's the clear conclusion.
Yeah. Well, we also have Lissa Woods, who with the Freedom Gold Group on the line. Let's get her on the line. Lissa, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you guys this evening?
Fine. Thank you so much for joining us this Saturday evening on Liberty Talk Radio on 1170 KFAQ. Lissa is the vice president and one of the founders of the Freedom Gold Group, one of the oldest, I guess, and most responsible precious metals trading companies.
Great company.
On the Internet. And I do recommend that you take a look at what she has. And, oh, by the way, I want to give us a plug also to Andy Sutton. And, Andy, I want to give you some time a little later on to tell about your podcast and all that other stuff, which I'd like for people to listen in on, because that's what I do. Lissa, did you have any particular subject that you wanted to discuss this evening?
Well, first of all, I have to agree with all of you with what's going on with the government trying to control, and the healthcare system is just one of the first steps to taking complete control over people's lives. So, and unfortunately, the gentleman that called in that said about the banks with the 3%, it's actually 4%, and unfortunately, if we do have a lot of problems on the horizon, and with the government shutting down, it's just another ruse to get people excited and get them upset that their things aren't going to transpire, and people stick their heads into the ground and they don't really want to be bothered. And it's a big problem right now with what's going on in this country.
What I find interesting and disturbing at the same time, that if you look at all of the economic indicators quantitatively, both the leading indicators, lagging indicators, coincident indicators, all those the public published indicators of our economy, nearly 100% of them are up. Now, they increase ever so slightly, but they are all up. And so they keep on saying, well, it looks like things are, in fact, getting better. Now, Andy, you're the economist. Help me with that.
Oh, there's a student in the classroom. He's taking a test. All right? The test is in front of him. He's got an hour, whatever. There's two ways he can do this. He can do it honestly, or he can cheat. And that's basically what's going on here. There's two ways that this can be done economically. We can either, is that, what was his name? John Houseman, the old Smith Bonnie, we make money the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, we earn it.
Right.
We can do it. You did it better than I did. We could do it that way, or we could just fake it. We can just print it and say, "Hey, we have it. We're gonna dump it in here." And you know what that does, Joe? That distorts. You can take all those leading indicators and all that gobbledygook, and you can roll it up and you can circular file it under G, because that's what it's worth. Because now we have this entity, this private entity, that just creates this stuff from nothing, and it makes everything else worth nothing. I should add, I just looked this up while we were talking. Healthcare costs in the United States eat up 17, almost 18% of our GDP. Huge proportion. Now, tell me the government wouldn't love to have control over almost a fifth like the retirement system. This is a honey pot, whatever you want to call it. They won't be able to keep their hands out of it, and they haven't been able to. I mean, it's been proven.
Well, you add that to a third of the economy coming from the workforce of the government. Now you got a big piece of the pie.
Yeah, exactly. There's half right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm old school. I have to think in very, very simple terms because I'm simple-minded. I'll be the first to admit it. You know the old expression, when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. The way I look at it is when Mother Nature ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And I think we've been trying to fool Mother Nature now for years. And there has to come what we call a come to Jesus meeting on that. There has to be a day where a day of reckoning. But we think we can continue this on this path of faking it constantly. Would I be overly dramatic if I said that when we have the next downturn, it will not be like the Great Depression, because the Great Depression, there was some substance in our economy, there was some substance within our currency, our financial system, that it will be infinitely worse than the Depression. It's a period of time that we cannot even perceive. Or am I being overly dramatic when I say that?
I would have to. No, I don't think you are, and I hate to say it, but I believe it's going to be catastrophic. The Fed just keeps making excuses one after the other. They're delaying the truth and the day of reckoning, as you say, Joe. For this reason, the markets are becoming more and more unstable. And I believe it's going to be much worse than 2008. And the Fed is hard-pressed to make, the rescue like it did in September of 2008. After all, interest rates are already at zero. It can't radically drop. They can't radically drop them again. I mean, there's nothing to back it up. I mean, this is crazy.
Right.
It's crazy.
Now we are experiencing, and Andy, you got to help me with this a little bit, but I understand that Europe continues on its slide downward, in productivity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or everything, the GDP, everything in Europe is slowly sinking. Is that true?
Yeah, we're a little bit behind Europe on this path, and I agree with what Lissa said. This isn't going to be a Great Depression. This isn't going to be a Great Recession. It's going to be a total failure because there's no underpinning. When you look at what happened back in 1929 to 1941, that period of time, you had productive capacity in this country. You had people that were educated. You had people that had abilities and skills and things like that, and tools at their disposal to help themselves. Today, we depend on what? Fast food restaurants. We don't grow our own food. We've been down this road.
Right.
So it will be a complete failure.
The
Fed knows it, and the Fed knows it, and they figure, well, we'll just print money, and we'll obfuscate, and we'll go in front of Congress, and we'll refuse to provide information, and all this kind of stuff. And they know as well as all of us do what the outcome is going to be.
Well, they're going to benefit.
As long as they can keep that golden eggs, they're going to do it.
Right, and Andy's absolutely right, because they can't print enough money, buy enough bonds, or inject enough liquidity into the market to prevent a real pricing from emerging. So when it does, everything's going to reset much lower, and there's going to be huge losses. All of the leveraged positions are going to unwind, and it's going to be the financial system will just rip through, and all the categories of assets are going to just be dissolved. It's going to be crazy. And like I said, I don't want to gloom and doom people, but the reality is that this is going to be catastrophic.
But, that's the response that you get from most people. They go, oh, why are you so negative? I try to keep a positive approach to life. No, I get this all the time. I try to keep a positive approach to life, and I have hope. And it seems that you are very negative. You take a very dismal view of the world. And this is what they all end with. And quite frankly, I could not live like you. And I think to myself, I don't want to take the blue pill. I don't want to do that. I say that to myself. I don't say that to them because they'll think I'm a wacko. And they think I'm a wacko anyway. But it divorces me from the conversation, and I really don't know how to respond to that. In that, all I say is that, I just like to look at reality and know what I'm up against so that I can prepare for it.
Right. Jim, you were talking about solutions. Yeah. It's a forced solution. Unfortunately, it's going to be a horrible forced solution. And we really, are we crazy to even, these clowns in Washington, they're just drama queens this last week. Have you seen them? They're just playing this whole thing up. We need solutions.
What are the solutions? Because I think hyperinflation of Germany, is that what we're talking about here? And so the value of our dollar right now is probably the most value that we're going to have for some time to come. So what do we do?
Well, I'll chip my 2 cents in here. The dollar today is worth the most that you're going to see it moving forward. And every day it's going to be worth a little bit less. The solution is very simple. We have coming up at the end of the year a very epochal moment in time, and that's when the Federal Reserve's charter runs out. And I think hidden behind a lot of this crisis talk and gobbledygook and budgets and debt ceilings, and don't forget, that's the institution that's responsible for a lot of this, and they're doing everything they can to hide that. But their charter runs out at the end of this year. Here's the solution: don't renew it.
Amen.
Let the Congress take back control of the money as it was decreed by the Constitution. And then what you do is you go to your creditors and you say, look, all right, we blew it. Now, it's not in your best interest to lose 100% of what you've invested in our bonds and all this other sort of thing. Let's see if we can cut a deal. We have resources, we have technologies, we have these things, and we have those things. Let's cut a deal. And let's try and work our way out of this. You know what? We worked our way into it. We borrowed our way into it. If we think we're going to just get off the hook free, well, then I got bridges in North Dakota. I can sell to every one of those people out there that says, you know what? I want to think positive. There was a tornado movie. I think it was Randy Quaid was in it, and there was a tornado coming, and they went to a trailer park, and they were trying to get people to evacuate. And Randy Quaid went up, knocked on this trailer door, and the guy comes out, and he's looking at you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. It's all good. And Randy Quaid says, hey, let me know how that works out for you.
Well, what would we do, Andy? Do you think if we're able to shut down the Federal Reserve, what do we go back on the gold standards first thing, right?
We'd have to go back on some kind of standard. Yeah. I don't know that it would necessarily be a gold standard. First, we'd have to have a full auditing and accounting to figure out if we even have any gold to go back on it.
Oh, boy.
Exactly.
We know where that's going to blow up.
Oh, that's going to be a big crisis in itself.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying, though? We don't even know who owns what. And why do you think they don't want to allow an audit? So we might be on a shale gas standard. I don't know. But we'd have to have there'd have to be some kind of underpinning discipline to a new monetary system so that people could have faith in it. I have no idea why people have faith. They have no faith in the government, but they have faith in the government, that the currency that the government issues that's managed by a private institution. Somebody explain that to me.
Yeah, well, how many people really recognize that, understand that? I think lots of people don't get that.
I didn't even know they were reviewing
no idea.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I didn't even know they were reviewing the Federal Reserve Charter.
Yeah, when does that? So on the day of that charter renewal, let's say it doesn't get renewed. What happens to the value of the dollar at that point?
That is a really good question. I can't answer it. I don't know.
Yeah, boy.
I know their charter was for 100 years, and I believe it goes to the day that the charter was passed, or the act, I should say, was passed.
Wow.
Which would have been December 23rd.
But people don't know this. That's the sad part of it.
All right, let's take something that's very current. How about what we're going through right now when they didn't increase the debt limit and they're laying off all these people except for things that make them comfortable, the criminals in office. Where is this heading for? Anyone know?
I sort of dropped off, guys, so I didn't really hear what you said, Joe.
Oh, where are we heading now? Let's assume for a second that there is no compromise in Washington, and this persists for weeks. The current budget situation where they had to lay everyone off because they have no money. I mean, what happens?
Well, it seems to me, I mean, when you look at what's going on for the past 71 years, the U.S. government has been spending more than they've been taking in. You can't run a business that way. You can't run a family that way. And that's why Americans need to start stepping up and taking control themselves. They have to stop relying on the government and these people to protect them, because it's not going to happen. And that's why people, you know, they need to start stepping up and being prepared. You've got to have some sort of control. And when you have physical gold and silver, you've got something that's a world currency that's going to protect yourself. And that's why people need to understand. People need to start realizing that you have to pay your debt and you have to be in control. And this alleged shutdown, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't have anything to do with the real problem. And you cannot keep spending. And that's what
does
they're
the
doing.
shutdown have to do with this?
Well, the shutdown is that it may cripple the economy even quicker.
Well, Obamacare surely will.
Yeah.
That's another issue we were talking about tonight. That could be the
what I
straw
find
that breaks the camel's back.
what I find interesting is that what I tell people, I don't tell them, go out and buy gold. Or I tell them, buy things of value,
Right.
that you can hold in your possession. I said, and that could mean a 5-pound bag of lentils. I don't care what it is, but anything of value, you know, that you would need in the event of some sort of disruption, even a snowstorm. Just think this is a big snowstorm and you wish you had fill in the blank. Get those things, stock up on them, just like they did back in the 1910s and 1920s and 1930s. Everyone, when they had extra money, they didn't go to the movies. They bought an extra bag of lentils or beans or whatever, and they store them. And that was natural. If you had things of value, you were okay.
So you're suggesting
now,
the barter system.
Yeah, but now when you mention that, they look at you like you're nuts. Like, well, why would I want it? They cannot make that transition from everything is okay. When I need something, I go to the local convenience store, you know, and pick it up and come home.
It might not be there.
They don't make that. They can't perceive that, though.
Right, but most people don't realize that stores only have 3 days.
They do.
3 days of goods. That's it. So if you're not prepared, and you need to be prepared, whether it's for a tornado, whether it's for an earthquake, whether it's for a hurricane, mudslide, whatever it may be, you've got to have some necessities on hand, medications, things like that. People don't prepare for it. And yes, Joe, they do think you're crazy. Everybody thinks I'm crazy. But the reality is something's going to happen, because when the financial network collapses, you cannot continue to spend more than you bring in, and it's going to collapse, and we can't keep printing money. Because as I said before on the previous show, you know, when I was a kid, a gallon of gas was 24 cents. Today it's over $4 in California. The reality is, with a silver quarter from 1964, you could buy a gallon of gas today.
That's right.
So you've got to do something to protect yourself, and people have to stop depending on other people to take care of it for them, because it's not a reality. Banks don't have the money that they say they do, and like you said, the guy had to make an appointment to go in and get the cash. It's happening all the time.
Yeah. All right, hold on, everyone. Just hold on. We have to take a hard break, and we'll be back. When we come back, I want Andy to make some comments regarding the other countries that are getting haircuts right now that we're not hearing about. Okay, stay with us. We're here this evening with Dr. Jim Meehan, with economist Andy Sutton, and precious metals guru Lissa Woods. Did I get everybody? Okay. And plus the whole gang here at the studio, and they're all excited about what we're doing this evening. But our conversation this evening revolves around health care and the economy. And our economy is influenced so much from what is going on around the world. Now, Andy, let me ask you a question. You one time brought up the situation in, was it Poland and in Panama? Was it that they're getting haircuts, or something's happening with their economy or their currency?
Well, Poland got a fairly significant haircut, Joe. Their pension plan subscribers, they got a 50% haircut now, about 2 weeks ago. Poland seized those assets basically to prevent themselves from becoming the next Greece. Well, that's fine and dandy, but the only problem is now your pensioners are out half of their income and assets, and you can only do that one more time, and then that pot is empty. So their collapse is inevitable. This is just a kick the can down the road kind of thing. But this is what happens when you get caught in the crosshairs of these types of situations, and that's exactly where we are here in America because of our fiscal irresponsibility over the decades. I want to give 2 more cents on this Federal Reserve situation. There has been a great deal of debate as to whether, in fact, there is even a 100-year charter. The banks were originally given a 20-year charter. I was told, and you know me, I have very few sources per se, but I was told by a fairly high source in Germany that there is government action required to keep the Fed going, but more of what they seem to be afraid of is the symbolism of the 100 years.
No, remember you said she should take up a more serene sport?
More of what people are, finding it symbolic that, hey, it's been 100 years and we've lost 97% of our purchasing power. How about if we just get rid of this? Second point on that is if you look at the Federal Reserve Act itself, Section 11B, and I quote, the board shall order an annual independent audit of the financial statements of each Federal Reserve Bank and the board. So there's already an audit mechanism in place. Just like there's a balanced budget amendment called Graham-Rudman that was put in place many years ago, 25 years ago.
They're ignoring it.
So, we don't need a constitutional amendment. There's laws on the books. These crooks ignore them.
Right.
Because it's politically expedient. Poland got ripped off 50%. We have about $18 trillion in our retirement system. We have about $16 trillion in actualized debt. If you want to go into the unfunded liabilities, your numbers are going to go anywhere from, high 70 trillion to mid 250 trillion.
Right.
You look at the size of the derivative market, it ranges from anywhere from 800 trillion to 1.5 quadrillion. Those are numbers you can't even fathom. Right. This thing will collapse because of its own weight. There's no way to stop it. These guys all know it. Lissa's 100% right. When that does happen, and I'm not going to say if, when, I don't know the day. Don't ask, and no one call me and ask the day because I don't know. And I'm not going to give you an estimate either because, frankly, if I say it's going to happen on January 1st of 2014, everybody's going to wait until New Year's Eve to do something about it. So I'm not saying a word. When that happens,
right.
Everything you know and everything that you have based your entire financial life on is going to change. It's going to be like somebody turned out the lights. Yeah. It's not going to be gradual. It's not going to be like 2008.
It's not going to be pretty.
Lights out, knockout, 10 count, game over.
Well, you're not giving much weight to American exceptionalism then, are you?
Well, hey, if you want to call, consuming more than you produce on an annualized basis for decades on end, and
that's
really having total apathy towards it, if that's exceptionalism, then no, I'm not crediting exceptionalism.
Yeah. Folks, this is Liberty Talk Radio. We invite you to call 855-866-1170. It's 855-866-1170. We have our guest here, Dr. Jim Meehan. We have economist Andy Sutton. And last but not least, we have precious metals guru Lissa Woods. And please give us a call. The lines are open for you. They're here to answer your questions. Please call. Now, it always seems that when I have conversations with people that appear to be listening to me are not really listening. They're staring at me. Have you ever had that experience? I mean, their eyes are wide open and they're staring at me. And after a while, you get this feeling that they're frozen. It's like deer in the headlights, and it's a strange sensation. I mean that, and they're staring. I mean, it's not a right. They're not moving, saying, "Oh, yes, no," or "I agree," and they just stare and they listen. And it's almost like, when is this person going to shut up?
Or either that, or they're getting mad at you.
Yeah, or they get angry. Yeah, but they just stare at you, and they don't move. And I don't understand that.
It's the reality.
I don't know, Joe. When people do that to me, I'm almost tempted to find the nearest ambulance and grab the defibrillator and just stay all clear and stop them.
Well, in medicine, we call that a psychological defense mechanism.
Exactly.
They recognize that there's a problem. They sense it. They're still, living the illusion, and they're spending their time perfecting their golf game and becoming a sommelier, things that are really not going to serve them. And when you confront them with the fact that,
reality.
listen, everything could change. This in a couple of weeks, the trucks don't run and the trains don't run. And what are you going to, and the supermarkets are emptied of food in 3 days. And really, what are you going to do? All of those great skills are just not going to be that useful for you. The putter is going to do you very little good unless you can run down that rabbit.
During the break, we were talking in
Right.
a collapse. In a collapse, you were sharing, Jim, that, a lot of the doctors, they have all this knowledge as long as it's connected to these high-powered diagnostic tools. What are they going to do when it's real medicine where the doctors used to look in your eye and look at your tongue and be able to tell you what was wrong?
Absolutely. One of the reasons the healthcare system has become so expensive is because we are so reliant on these very expensive technologies. You take an ER that doesn't have a CT, an MRI, an advanced, echocardiography, and they're lost. They use technology to make the diagnosis. They really have lost the art of medicine. And it's really, there's so much to know about medicine nowadays.
That's a skill that'll carry you through. If you know, things in the future, then you can. That's part of preparation is knowledge.
It's going to be so important. And listen, you got to take control of that yourself. You got to learn a few basic skills. Lissa, it sounds like you'd be right on the same page with me on this. One of the things I teach my patients, and I'm writing a book about it, is the single most important thing that you could do for your health is to start a garden at home. Start growing more of your own food. You can dramatically increase the nutrient density, the nutrition of your body by growing more of your own food instead of relying on it to be harvested early before it's ripe, ripening in the back of a truck on the way to a distribution center. And so, that's something I recommend to every patient every time, and I think it's one of the things that we could do right now to prepare for the worst.
Yeah, I urge people to do that all the time. Make sure you have your own garden, have a water supply. And like I said, I'm not a doomsayer, but the reality is that we are going to have some big turn of events. So it's extremely important that people do that. So it's just something that's extremely important that people take control, like I said before. And it's funny that you're saying about the doctors because, when you look at it, the real ones that are going to be able to step up to the plate are the emergency medics that are in the field from all these wars. I mean, those guys are going to be able to actually treat people because they don't need the equipment that they have in these ERs and in hospitals.
Right.
So, when you look at it, that they go back to the real medicine.
Exactly.
I'll double up on the garden thing. I mean, that makes sense really from three perspectives. First of all, health. I've got a background, although it's fairly old. I started out actually in the medical field as well. And, it's much more healthy, obviously. So you have a benefit there. You have a cost savings benefit because you don't have to pay for it to be shipped 3,000 miles, and you're not eating a 3,000-mile Caesar salad. And, on the third hand here, when this thing does go sideways, you've got what they had back in 1929.
Victory
you have a little bit of self-sufficiency.
Yeah,
something to sell, too.
Yeah, it's a win-win-win situation.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Well, you know what?
there.
What I find out is people go, oh, well, I don't have the land. You don't need land. You can do it in boxes.
That's
People do it in
exactly
boxes
right.
all the time. You can build boxes very easily from the Home Depot. I mean, there's many ways you can do a garden, whether you're in an apartment or wherever, people can do it.
You can do it in a window or on a balcony of your apartment even.
Absolutely.
I have a friend that
And
lives
that's
down in
what-
Baltimore, actually, and he turned, he's got a little deck there, and it gets to get, 4 or 5 hours of sun a day, whatever. I was shocked at the amount of vegetables he was able to produce on that little deck.
That's right.
Shocked.
Interesting.
The other part of it is the exercise and the sunlight. One of the most important things that you could do to really build up your immune system is get enough sunlight 10, 12 minutes per day to increase your vitamin D levels. Increase your vitamin D levels, and you are dramatically improving your ability to resist viral infections and so much that vitamin D deficiency is a big deal in this country, a big driver of chronic disease. So there's so many benefits to starting your own garden.
But it seems that we don't subscribe to those natural remedies, and not remedies, but natural way of life. I mean, the way the human body was designed.
Because we've become suburban.
Yeah,
we're a suburban
that's
society.
Right. And, but we have television now, so, we can live in this illusion and sit in our living rooms.
You have the Food Network,
yeah,
Joe.
That's right. That's right. And
you know what's
with our
really...
chips and dip, and that's it. It's life is wonderful.
But the thing is, and people need to wake up also, because when you look at a company like Monsanto, who basically owns most of the cornfields, and now they're involved in the wheat industry, that's crazy.
Oh, it is.
I mean, you look at that, that's insane.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what is a carpet manufacturer doing with food? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. So there's something.
Hey, that's because they're carpet bagging us. That's
okay. Touche. That's great, Andy.
Andy comes from a Yankee. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Andy, coming from you.
Hey, Andy, you had written me an email. I don't have it in front of me. I cannot find it. And there was a couple of tough subjects that you wanted to bring up, but I'm sorry. I just don't have it in front of me, and for my mind is blank. Could you help me with them?
Oh, we got so sidetracked off on this other stuff, and I'm going to be totally honest with you. This whole thing about healthcare and medicine and nutrition, it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart, and it really does play into the whole idea of the economic precarious position that we're in, just because of what we were talking about before. Yeah. The thing is, when this all happens, we're going to need something to function as a money. Our money's not going to work anymore. It's going to be like your car. The oil pan drain plug falls out, the oil runs out, the engine seizes up, and guess what? The car stops. Well, that's what's going to happen to this financial system. The plug's out, the oil's draining out, the Fed's trying to put more oil in, but eventually the thing's going to seize up. And when it does, we're going to need another way to transact business. And that's a fourth way that, if you do have some ability to grow surplus amounts of food, vegetables, whatever, that can serve as a money. Anything that has intrinsic value is money.
I'm telling you, as a physician, I would love to trade my services for some great blueberries and healthy fruits and vegetables, a few chickens, all day long. I think it's a great point, Andy. The barter system has got to come back. I mean, why not bring it back right now? Start perfecting it, creating some way of valuing everybody's goods and services and skills and youthful strength. I mean, that's going to be a real commodity. Our young people out there listening, are there any systems like this in place right now that could help a community?
There are tons of them, and you know what the great thing about them is? They're totally decentralized. They're totally autonomous. I call them co-ops, and I have people send me emails all the time saying, hey, I'm working with this neighbor, and we're doing this bartering. We're doing that bartering with another guy. We've cut the dollar. We've cut that filthy paper out of our transactions. So, yeah, we don't have to introduce it. It's already being introduced. That's the great thing about this. And, when you add gold, silver, Joe's big on nickels, and so am I. Anything like that has intrinsic value can serve as a money. Food's a little bit difficult because it doesn't really last a long time in most cases, so it's not a very good store of wealth necessarily. That's where the metals come in, some of these other things. Metals are obviously a little bit more homogeneous food. There's different quality issues. So you have to have some hard currencies too, but there's no reason you can't have food bartering going on. Those can be short-term currencies. You can have all kinds of stuff. Services, you mentioned, Doctor. You would trade your services for maybe a couple dozen eggs.
Absolutely.
Something along those
Exactly.
lines. People are already doing it, and that's the great thing. And you know what? People get you'll hear government advocates get upset. Well, there's no taxation here and that. Well, you know what? Give us a real money, an honest money to transact business in, and give us an honest, reasonable tax rates and provide a constitutional, liberty-loving level of government, and I think most people would be more than happy to take care of that and do their part. But when you say, we're going to rip you off, and we're going to give you this filthy, rotten monopoly money to play with, and then, by the way, we're going to require that you pay more and more and more of your your labor hours and whatnot to taxes that are stripping us of our liberties and our constitutional rights, people are going to say, no way, forget about it. Get out of here.
Maybe the bartering system isn't as powerful now because people don't trust each other as much as they used to.
Yeah.
But once that changes, that's when it becomes powerful, the bartering system.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. And people do need to reach out. But unfortunately, when you've got the politicians and talking and they're lying, people fall into place and they follow them. And that's the problem. That's one of the big problems.
Does anybody think it's a coincidence that all this hate is being fomented among different groups in this country? They do not want the people of this country uniting together for anything.
I get that. That polarization of America.
Oh, it's true.
Exactly.
And it's really hard not to be sucked into it, too.
Yeah, left, right paradigm.
Well, if we were all on the same page, we'd have a flat tax. I mean, you
Right.
look at a company like GE, they paid zero, but we all paid our taxes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, if there was a flat tax, we wouldn't be in the trouble that we're in.
Right.
Well, that's too logical.
And we wouldn't have a huge IRS bureaucracy that is clearly targeting,
political ideas.
That political ideas,
ideologies. It's crazy, and I don't know if the people out here listening to our program tonight. I don't know. I hope they understand. And we're not getting any calls tonight on this. I think they're just stunned. They got that look that you're talking about earlier, Joe.
The deer in the
headlights. But we got to wake up and be proactive and do things.
Well, people feel very uncomfortable discussing the subject. It's like discussing a sickness. You would prefer not to discuss it. Well, if I don't discuss it, and I sort of take care of the whole thing will
go
away.
It'll just go away. Yeah.
Again, don't be negative. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. It's too uncomfortable.
Joe, let me put this out there. Joe, I'd like to put this out there. Don't think of themselves. Think about their children and their grandchildren.
There you go.
Because if you really look at the big picture, this is happening. It's not going to go away. And you have to think of your children and your grandchildren. We may not be here to see it, but the reality is they will. Mm-hmm. And you have to look at it that way. So they need to step up to the plate and start being prepared.
Yeah.
Whether they like it or not.
I agree 100%. We're all charged with stewardship of our land, our country, everything. And the old adage is leave it better than you found it.
There you go. Will Rogers.
My generation, I think, was one of the ones where we really started to go over the cliff on that one and have begun to neglect that. And, I'm ashamed of it from my own generation.
1980s debt, Andy.
Yeah. I'm really ashamed of it for us 40-somethings, especially us early 40-somethings. We've really dropped the ball, and we need to pick it up.
Yeah. And it's a shame that in our history books, those presidents that did the most for this country, presidents like Harding and Coolidge, who kept us out of war, reduced the size of government, and made us a freer nation while they were in office, are presidents that we never hear about. But we do hear about Theodore Roosevelt, that was a maniac. He wanted to be a monarch, and he preferred to be a dictator, and he admitted it. And then you had Roosevelt, which was just wanted to install socialism, and he cared about nothing. I mean, such as presidents like that. All the bad ones. And by the way, we have less than 2 minutes left. Lissa, I want to give you and Andy maybe about 45 seconds each to tell us about your services that you provide and how they may reach you.
Okay, well,
take it away.
Freedom Gold Group. You can give us a call at 800-496-5945. What we do is we educate you to understand the importance of having a small diversification in physical metals. You don't need a lot, but every American should have something that they're in control of that's a world currency that's liquid anywhere in the world. And like I said, you call 800-496-5945, and we're happy to get you out free information and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, now when people are very reluctant to do that sometimes because they feel, well, once I call, you're going to call me every week and buzz the heck out of me. You don't do that, do you?
No, and we're too busy to do that. I mean, we're
okay, good. All right, so folks do call.
We don't cold call people. We
All
don't
right,
beat
great.
them over the head. It's educational.
I mean, I knew the answer to that, but I wanted to lay it on the table. Andy, you want to say a few words also?
I'll say one thing. If every American bought 1 ounce of silver today, we could end the manipulation.
Right.
My podcast that I ran for 2.5, 3 years, Joe's How I Met Joe, it's going to be restarting this coming Wednesday. There's going to be more coming out on that. I write articles about every other week. You can find out more information about all that in the firm. You can go to www.sutton-associates.net, or you can call it 888-633-5420. And I have to encourage everybody to subscribe to the podcast and the 2 cents. I don't harass anybody. I'm too busy as well.
And Ted, I want to thank very much. I want to thank you two guys for calling in and being part of our show. And of course, Dr. Jim Meehan, thank you very much. And
I enjoyed it.
Return out.
Learned a lot.
And please do accept our invitation to return. That stands for all three of you. Thank you very much. I guess this is the end of tonight's program, and thank you for listening to Liberty Talk Radio.
Good night. Nice to meet you, Dr. Jim.